We progress to the first plenary session of the day, where we explore the national policy framework in Sri Lanka. Please welcome Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, the Secretary to the President, who will provide us with an overview of the policy framework in Sri Lanka.
Ayubowan, let me first wish all of you a very productive day with us. I'm extremely pleased to address Sri Lanka Investment Forum 2021 soon after His Excellency the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Honorable Minister of State Enterprise and Capital Market address you. I'm also very grateful and pleased to see that this forum is organized by the Board of Investment, Colombo Stock Exchange and Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. I thank for taking this collaborative effort by both the government and private sector and inviting me to deliver the keynote address on National Policy Framework of Sri Lanka. The past 18 months have seen that the entire world is struggling against COVID-19 virus, the most serious pandemic that brought the working of the global connectivity to a halt. It has taken nearly 4 million lives, while nearly 2 million have been identified as infected people. These numbers may be more. The well-renowned scientists took almost a year to discover a vaccine, while governments, medical professions, public service, security forces were managing the adverse impact through a variety of methods. Now, the vaccine manufacturers are struggling to increase production and distribution, while the whole world is hungry for having the vaccine, reflecting the desire to see post-COVID-19 recovery on natural life and business. I'm sure it is that desire Sri Lanka Investment Forum stands for. The past 18 months, all of us have seen global community which advanced steadily for nearly half a century suddenly got disconnected and are isolated from one another. It was costly. The world economy contracted by 3.3% in 2020, with advanced economies contracting by 4.7%. The emerging and developing Asia contracted by 1%, thanks to China holding its resilience and achieving 2.5% growth. India, South Asian economic powerhouse, suffered a 8% contraction in GDP. The COVID-19 hit Sri Lanka at a time the whole nation was placing their trust and confidence in President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who knew he was taking over a badly run-down economy, institutions and governance. The 5-year period before he took over in 2019 was not a reflection of a sustained achievement of post-conflict economic and social aspiration. Economic growth was systematically declining from 5% in 2015 to 2.3% in 2019. You can recall that Sri Lanka maintained 5 to 5.5% growth even during 30-year conflict period and seen 7 to 8% growth after the conflict, showing countries' growth potentials and resilience. By 2019, Sri Lanka also saw a low external reserve position against structurally high trade deficit running on average $10 billion per annum, and a high exposure to capital account transaction, including external debt servicing, dividend and interest payment. On top of this, has seen with loan-funded public investment projects which were having high cost and long gestation period. The government of President Rajapaksa also knew it has inherited areas finance, fiscal operations, high and complex tax systems, as well as double-digit interest rate, all were not conducive for investment and growth-friendly environment. The tourism, which grew so rapidly after conflict ended, was also hit by Easter Sunday attack, and the country began to appreciate the value of security to prevent such risks thereafter. This industry was earning $4.2 billion prior to its employing nearly 3 million people and making Sri Lanka as a promising tourist destination that can easily generate $10 billion. COVID did not allow this potential to exploit. The already weak economy hit by COVID made 4% economic contraction in Sri Lanka in 2020. Although the government introduced sweeping tax reforms, public expenditure management reforms, public investment strategies reforms in state enterprise managements, the benefits of such initiatives have been overshadowed by COVID pandemic and increased public health expenditure. The government's fiscal reform places high priority in reducing fiscal deficit from 10% of GDP in 2020 to below 4.5% by 2025, while reducing debt to GDP below 75%, largely through the reduction in external project loans to reduce external debt exposure. The country's external account is the center of this transformation. As we all may agree, the country's present level of exports of around $10 billion is inadequate for at least for 3 reasons. First, it is not diversified. Second, it depends on imports and less on domestic value addition. And last but not least, it is grossly inadequate to meet $20 billion imports. No economy of our scale can sustain $10 billion per annum trade deficit. The national plan to address this imbalance is to raise export earning to $15 billion by 2024 and to $20 billion by 2028 through a diversified industrial and agro-processing industrial activities. As you may be aware, 70% of Sri Lanka's industrial export take place through BOI approved investment. Currently, they operate below capacity, and the young and charismatic BOI chairman and board of directors have been assigned the task of raising BOI-centric industrial export rapidly in the next 2 to 3 years. This year alone, despite all disturbances, the Board of Investment, Export Development Board, and the plantation industry have been given a target of $12 billion. It is encouraging that the performance of past 5 months and the prospect for the next 6 months to realize this goal, and we are willing to sit with anyone to address their individual problems to see this target is a reality. As you know, given our challenges, government was compelled to restrict imports. It has declined to $16 billion now, but gradually country need to relax to realize around $22 billion in 2024-2025 when Sri Lanka sees exports of near $20 billion. The shift towards food security-centric production, renewable energy, pharmaceutical, fabric manufacturing, all are well in line with presidential initiative on climate resilience and green economy is the major structural reform in this area, which I will explain. Distinguished participants, the strength and resilience in Sri Lankan economy and its people lies with a well broad-based business community. Micro, small, medium to large in terms of scale, or domestic and foreign in terms of ownership, Sri Lanka has a rich portfolio of business community. Sri Lanka is pleased that no foreign investor entered into Sri Lanka has left the country or abandoned their business, whatever difficult circumstances they have gone through here. They are from all over the world, and Sri Lanka is admiring such investment community. Sri Lanka is rich with its domestic business community who have demonstrated their resilience and capacity to be global. After all, out of 25 to 30% of total investment GDP ratio in this country, 23% is from domestic business community. Sri Lanka is equally rich in terms of having a well-literate labor force capable of working in any global business operating in Sri Lanka or overseas destination. Apparel industry, the country's largest manufacturing industry, is well aware how adaptable our young workforce in their factory environment. I regret that organized large plantation companies have not seen what a difference labor force can do in plantation, yet a smallholder plantation has proceeded how well plantation economy can move from primary economic activity to processing and manufacturing. The government is planning a major restructuring in the plantation sector, particularly with the emphasis on the large plantation companies to put the unutilized land into productive use in near future. Sri Lanka earns $7.1 billion in 2020 from overseas employment, despite government brought back about 100,000 people living in safe houses in overseas. The aim of the government is to secure well-paid overseas jobs for Sri Lankans in various skills to provide better livelihood openings as well as country to benefit from such inflows. The national plan of the government has targeted $10 billion of such inflows by 2023-2024. Sri Lanka has also proved beyond doubt its political stability with matured democracy, legal, judicial system, and parliamentary democracy. Friends, these are some of our upside to give you confidence in our economy and people. However, there are downsides as well. First, long overdue reforms which have placed us in the 90th position in doing business index, which is not worthy of talking. Sri Lanka must aim at least among top 10 to 25 in the country ranking for doing business index. The other is the critical infrastructure gaps and cost of electricity. We cannot be complacent of our communication of projecting country advantage either. Both private sector and public sector are not well organized in this area, and this investor forum is certainly a step in the right direction. National development goals and strategies of the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, which understand the aspiration of the people and the potentials of this country, has been set up having studied multifaceted strength and weakness that government has to give careful thoughts. As you are aware, Sri Lanka, like many other nations, have been performing under restrictive conditions to manage COVID-19 pandemic. It has not been ideal condition for business and public movements. The aspects of health of the people, economy and national security are interwoven, and government has given highest consideration to manage all three to the best interest of Sri Lankan people and the global community. It has not been ideal condition for business and public investment. However, the government has been busy getting ready for post-COVID-19 rapid social economic recovery within the overall policy framework of Vistas of Prosperity, the mandate of this government. Let me outline those initiatives for your benefit. First, the government concluded direct investment in excess of $700 million BOT project for a 35-year operation with India's largest port and logistic investor company, Adani Group, with partnership in John Keel's, Sri Lanka's largest blue chip company, to expand Colombo Port West Terminal. Sri Lanka Port Authority is also committed to develop East Container Terminal so that over the next 2 to 3 years, Colombo Port capacity will be expanded to handle transshipment cargo significantly. The next landmark investment is a 15-year FDI on elevated expressway from Kalani Bridge to Athurugiriya with $800 million by China Harbour Engineering Corporation. Both these investments are major shift from loan-funded government projects earlier designed for a foreign-funded investment projects. Government has also introduced a new legislation to establish Colombo Port City Economic Commission to capitalize its strategic position to provide global services to emerging global business between the West and East, putting Sri Lanka as a gateway to Asia. The Commission has been appointed with the eminent people. 7-member Commission will be working soon to address how the Port City Economic Commission will be operationalized. It is a legislation that was well endorsed by the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka and passed by Parliament with resounding majority, reflecting all executive, all rally around the executive to make it a service center opening for the Asian landmark change. The government has already given clearance to build financial center supported with other service facilities. The anticipated investment on already developed land and related infrastructure with $1.5 billion foreign direct investment expect further $20 billion on the development of international convention facilities, hospitals, schools, recreation and residential facilities, and places for regional headquarters over the next 5 to 7 years, being a construction pace, all attracting diverse skills and interests. Colombo city itself is ready to accommodate the transitional demand with nearly 10,000 luxury apartments ready for such initial occupation. I am also pleased to announce that the public investment to fill gaps in expressway network have been accelerated. The government expects that Port Expressway to be ready by this time next year. The elevated expressway is also expected to be ready before end of 2023 to provide easy access to ports and airports in Colombo and Hambantota, one major economic corridor to see increase exports, tourism, financial and logistics services. Domestic construction companies have been assigned the task of constructing expressway to north, east and hill country destination. Parallel with these initiatives, public investment supported by the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, several other funding agencies have been accelerated in irrigation, water and road development island-wide over the next 3 to 5 years. The shift towards use of renewable energy sources comprising solar, wind, hydro power generation has gained momentum. Along with this, clean energy use to reduce fossil fuel has been undertaken with foreign investment in LNG-fired electricity system has become a priority. The international tender, which has been floated 3 months ago, is about to close and the selection process will commence soon. As I mentioned before, considering countries' agricultural and water resources, government has given highest priority for food production, agriculture, livestock, fisheries and agro-based industries to provide food security as well as to replace import of food, vegetable, dairy, meat, eggs as well as sugar-based industries. Toward this, Board of Investment has been tasked to focus on a diversified industrial exports. Export Development Board has been tasked to concentrate on SME-centric exports. Mahavali Development Authority, which commands land and water, to concentrate on commercial agriculture. Urban Development Authority has been tasked to simplify their approval process and drive the transformation of urban landscape, middle and low-income housing and property development. Friends, as I mentioned earlier, this requires considerable effort in implementing far-reaching yet long overdue policy and institutional reform. Presidential Task Force, headed by a Supreme Court judge, is given the task to reforming port and custom procedures and logistics. A separate Presidential Task Force, jointly headed by former Secretary to the President and head of the John Case, together with several private sector leaders, have been assigned to simplify regulatory framework to ease doing business and make system work efficiently. Education Task Force has already commenced the implementation of education reforms to develop the skills required for the emerging economy. Presidential Commission on Financial Irregularities has recommended series of reforms in our finance company and regulatory system. Legal reforms headed by Honorable Minister of Justice to address civil, criminal and commercial laws to prevent law delays, commercial dispute resolution mechanism, etc. A series of new laws and amendments to existing legislation are now being in the process to submit to Parliament for approval. The pension reforms, together with the extension of retirement age, are being legislated and hopefully will be presented to the Parliament in due course to increase savings of our people as well as their productive work life. Steps have also been taken to streamline the working of company registrar and also to formulate guidelines to accommodate small-time investment in IT and enabling services, research and technology partnership to have easy approval process. State Minister of State Enterprises and Capital Market Development and former Governor of the Central Bank is steering the financial sector and capital market reform. There are also initiatives to amend the banking regulations and foreign exchange management regulations to enable Sri Lanka's banking system to enter into sovereign bond market and deepen the secondary market along with the international banks. The government's national plan placed significant interest in the development of international services. As you probably know, Sri Lanka's external service account has generally been in surplus position with 2018 recording $3.7 billion surplus. This was largely due to booming travel and tourism activities prior to Easter Sunday attack and COVID-19 pandemic. The comfort zone may come in favor of us when vaccination and other health regulations provide space. In the meantime, two other sources, namely port and telecommunication services, have gained growth momentum. In accordance with the National Development Policy Framework 2021-2023 medium-term national budget has permitted setting up 5 techno parks and vocational educational institutions with the setting up of city universities. Along with those universities are to increase IT, business and engineering related skill development. The government will set up 5 techno parks in different locations in Sri Lanka, well connected to expressway network, hotels and logistic areas, and easy access to the skilled workforce to increase IT-based operation on plug-and-play concept. The construction of these 5 parks will commence before in July. Sri Lanka's tax legislation also provides complete tax-free status to these services and incentive to start up business, including small-time investors. Telecommunication Regulatory Authority is in the process of providing broadband access across the country to improve online service delivery, including education, health, bank, taxation and real-time transaction. SLASCOM expects a $1.7 billion export earnings in 2021 and drive this industry to beyond $5 billion by 2024. In this background, external service account is expected to be $7 billion surplus position as against the current depressed level of $1 billion. This together with net remittance inflows providing a $10 billion, Sri Lanka is expected to strengthen its balance of payments and protect our debt service, dividend payments and interest payment to foreign investors. The restructuring the national balance sheet to provide space for states as well as for the private sector to direct their savings and investment is a key policy goal. In 2020, Sri Lanka's external government debt was reduced by $4 billion to $30.2 billion for all bilateral and sovereign bond market. Central Bank of Sri Lanka data also confirmed that the external debt of the banking sector has been reduced to $6.7 billion from $7.4 billion in 2018. Consequently, country's external debt has been reduced from $54.8 billion to $49.2 billion, despite our stress official reserve currently remain at around $4 billion. Within another 30 days, government will honor a further $1 billion bullet payments to our sovereign bond holders, reassuring that Sri Lanka will never default its debt. Swap arrangement between central bank and other central banks are being worked out, and government will provide us space to finance trade among such countries to deepen exports and trade. Last but not least is the presidential initiative to launch climate resilience and green economy development strategy to place country on a new environment-friendly setting for development. This front-loaded initiative is to move away from chemical fertilizer to organic in agriculture, reduce reliance on fossil fuel, and increase the reliance on clean energy and renewable energy sources, adopt recycling business model to convert waste to raw material, protect wildlife areas and restore elephant corridors, increase forest density, and tap new market for new funding sources for green technology. This is vast area of new investment opportunities. The World Bank is heavily involved in Surakumu Ganga program, a nationwide initiative to protect river basins and clean 103 rivers. Several development partners are embracing this initiative. The Asian Development Bank will have its annual meeting in Sri Lanka next year this time, providing all of you to participate to discover further progress in Sri Lanka in this national policy framework environment. Let me sum up. Sri Lanka is ready to regain the growth momentum it lost since 2015. Our target per capita income is $10,000 in next 5 to 7 years, as opposed to present level of $4,000. This will be driven by structural changes in exports and imports of goods and services to make it much more diversified and inclusive. On average, our growth target in GDP is in excess of 6%, with price inflation is maintained at the mid-single digit level. Volatility in exchange rate will be short-lived phenomena, and we expect our bank to give up short-term speculative behavior. The macroeconomic monetary policy strategy is to build countries' external reserve through the transformation of countries' external current account to generate a surplus, and not through raising debt, as has been the past practice of several years. This is why the government is placing trust in diversified exports of goods and services and reduction in import through reliance on viable import substitution like agricultural production, fabric manufacturing, pharmaceutical and vaccine drugs, renewable energy, and high content domestic value creation from foreign investment through technology transfer. The objective is to raise official reserve through such economic activities to around $8 billion in the medium term, which is well in excess of country's financial outflows. This is being reinforced in the fiscal adjustment path that will reduce exposure to external loan-funded projects. The fiscal savings by reducing such external debt and stabilizing exchange rate will enable the government to reduce fiscal deficit towards 4% of GDP, in addition to raising fiscal revenue based on large taxpayer focus and also with the online taxation technology application. Technology transfer is part of our foreign direct investment drive, while country has been operating on a restructuring mode. The government during last 18 months have been busy getting this nation ready for a major savings and investment mode. The rich business community operating in Sri Lanka active and are enthusiastic. Foreign investors have not faced difficulty in taking their dividend earnings. In 2020 alone, annual dividend taken out is around $600 million. Your dividend can get tax-free and other benefits while expanding your business in Sri Lanka, including the savings you have could put in sovereign bond market. I invite you to invest with that optimism and commitment from the government. I wish Sri Lanka Investment Forum 2021 a great success. World economy has recovered and Asia is resilient with huge market opportunities. High growth rate for 2021 projected for China and India gives Asia a new hope. Sri Lanka is the destination and gateway to this Asian emerging market, and for all local and foreign investors to capitalize this huge opportunity. Thank you very much.